that shape. It's an A because that shape grabs all the A's, C sharps, and E's in that area. That means if you can find other A's, other C sharps, and other E's, you can play A's all up and down the neck. So here's all the A's. Hey, that's cool. They're just all A's. Whoa. Cool. What about all the C sharps? Well, here's a C sharps. Yep. See where I'm going with this? If we put all the E's in there too, well, now you can see, okay.
Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords, and I'm here with you tonight with Venture Satanis
There's a bunch of
Joe
E's,
Bittman.
A's, and C sharps.
And today we also have as our special guest for the evening,
there's that one we were
Taylor
playing
Lane,
earlier.
who some of you might already have heard of because of recent events and YouTube videos and other live streams.
This one,
but maybe they're new to some of you.
Is the root note the lowest note?
Interviewing Taylor tonight, and we'll also be
when you're mapping it out like we did earlier.
Your questions, answering your questions and comments, and
but
if we have time, we might be talking about the latest controversy around Critical Role
C sharp is the lowest
the
note.
wokists are
then we got A.
trying to devour
so in this
Critical
case,
Role,
we're playing an A chord,
which is just great popcorn eating fun to talk about.
That's totally fine.
Starting off, I guess,
cool
Taylor, welcome to the show.
E, A, C sharp. Very cool.
Good to be here.
So, I did say we were going to be building major
live
and
stream
minor
together
chords,
on
but I want to do this
channel.
one
I guess it was like a month ago already.
So let's talk about a D major
in that
scale.
Live stream, we ended up talking. It's very good. If you guys in the audience have not seen this yet, check out
G.
Dolly Pop's
C sharp D. Here, I'll play
YouTube channel and check out the live stream on gender that had me,
step,
Taylor, and Dolly Pop.
Whole step, half step.
But it's good to have you on another live stream here, this time in my house. I guess you could say in Inappropriate Characters. So our house, I mean, Venture and Joe are equal.
It's real important to remember. So let's take now.
Tell us, to start, I guess, tell us a bit about yourself, whatever you want the audience to know about you, and from there we'll proceed with maybe some other questions.
I like to design role-playing content. I post that content on Itch and Drive-Thru. A lot of it has been system-independent classes and optional like rules variants. But recently I have put out the second edition of my own home system, LIVESTREAM. And just because it's apparently become the elephant in the room, I use they, them pronouns, and I am bisexual. But it's really the RPG stuff that I consider important for these purposes.
Right, but it did become news in a way because you had a lot of interaction first with the part of the indie gaming community, the people that are like what I call the woke OSR, right? And there was at some point you decided to engage, to communicate with people in the regular OSR, and that led to a whole series of cascading events that took place where you ended up doing this live stream with Dolly Pop and I, and the woke OSR responded by having a potato person named John Battle who went and did an hour-long video, and in this video he tried to claim that he dedicated about a third of the video to me and tried to claim that I'm some kind of alt-right neo-Nazi, and about a third of the video was on Grim Jim, who was also declared an alt-right neo-Nazi, and a tiny, about 2.5 minutes was dedicated to Venger, which I think Venger should probably feel a little bit insulted by that.
I am. I'm truly insulted. If anybody
Also
is not,
declaring him.
yeah, if
Sorry, go
anybody
ahead,
is not
Rick.
alt-right and not a Nazi, it's me. Well, you guys too, but come on. I mean, if you're gonna,
They couldn't even give you
be
a full
outraged
half
by
hour or
someone,
whatever.
be outraged by me.
Yeah. And then, and Job, he should be the most insulted by that video because he didn't even exist, right? Like they didn't even touch
he
on
didn't get
him.
mentioned once.
He's a non-entity. If you watch that video, the claim was that this show still starred me, Grim Avenger, and Job was not even in the picture. But
A transparency spell is working.
yeah, your transparency spell is working, exactly. The entire point, though, of that video was not about me or about Grim Jim, and certainly not about Venger. It was basically about you, because it was an attempt to discredit you. And my position is that this was happening because you were having a positive experience, or a mostly positive experience, of the regular OSR. And that goes completely against the narrative that these people have, that, somebody who is a game designer or a social media person that is not a straight white male is going to be attacked by the regular OSR or something like that. So I don't know. Do you have something to comment on that first?
So that is, I think, the version of the story that is very apparent to people who are just tuning in. But to me, this is just the latest chapter in a very long and dumb saga. So the harassment from this sort of, I don't know what to call them. They sometimes call themselves Troika Crew, but that's, I feel, not because a lot of them are either involved with Troika or friends of people involved with Troika. Some people call them art punk, but I don't want to skewer the entire art punk movement, because as the guy who started art punk is what's the Scrap Princess guy? I forget his name, but I've never had an issue with him. So I don't know what to call these people, but this particular circle...
Scrap Princess.
I think she means Patrick Stewart, right?
Oh, well, yeah, and then you got to lump Zach S with that too.
That's
a whole movement subset of. It's related to the OSR, but it's, I don't know.
My point is, there's this industry clique. I could list off some of the people in it. I'm sure I'd forget some. I don't even really want to make accusations, because I just don't want to. But there's this industry clique, and they never really liked me because I gained Twitter followers faster than they were comfortable with when I wasn't already part of their in-group. At one point, they actually invited me to their Discord server and tried to get me to platform their games. They have this whole thing where they have this insider Discord server, and they say they'll promote your games there. But what it really means is that you have to promote their games, and maybe if after enough time, the promise is they'll promote yours. So it's really about money. It's an industry cartel that doesn't like it when people who aren't them and don't have their permission start to break into things. And they dress things up in ideological language, because that's a great way to legitimize anything you want to do. But it's ultimately not really about ideology to them. They never really at any point cared that I was queer. They outright intentionally misgender me. Now that I'm especially canceled. I think it gives them too much credit to act like it's an ideological thing. anyways, so this went on for like a year. I actually just found the whole thing so depressing and so upsetting that I just kind of stopped writing, because it was very much portrayed to me that the only path to success for me involved pleasing these people, and I am not good at pleasing these people. Honestly, I would have pleased them if I could have figured out how to do that. And then at a certain point, I was recovered enough from that whole experience, and I decided to try and start writing again. And Pundit offered to promote my stuff and give me some airtime, and I figured it was either what did I have to lose? You know, what are they going to do? Hate me more?
The answer is yes. Now they hate you more.
I guess. But like the end result of that video was mostly that a bunch of people that I didn't even know before that suddenly wanted to be my friend, because they saw that the people that hated them also hated me. So I must be cool.
Yeah, so it all worked out, right?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Now, the thing is, I do agree with you that ideology is a secondary part of the interest for them as individuals, right? But I think that that money is definitely part of it for them. But I think another big part of it is a sense of self-importance. It's power and influence, you know?
Oh, definitely.
And this is a big part of the reason why the OSR not giving a crap about, you not being a straight white male, and only really caring about what, is your RPG writing good, like, are your products any good? This is a threat to them, right? And the fact that people have now, like, friended you and are, I know from after this video came out, you had basically your best sales month in at least a very long time. So they're buying your products. All of that is a huge threat to the wokeists, because it's not necessarily going to cost them money, but it has a risk of causing them enormous influence, because they have this kind of setup of this control by this, inner circle that depends on a bunch of people feeling like they have nowhere else they can go, right? People being told, well, if you just try to sell your stuff to the regular alt-right OSR or something like that, then I don't know, they're going to burn your house down or something, and so like that narrative that they've invented, that we're the gatekeepers, which is, we know for a fact they are the gatekeepers, but they want to try to present it as the other way around, is something that means that certain people that probably would be perfectly comfortable just talking about games and making games and having people in the OSR, look at their games for their own merit, are too afraid to do so, because they think they won't be given the chance to have their games looked at for their own merit, right? So yeah, that's I think the reason why they are particularly freaked out about you.
Yeah.
So
I think that's yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think that's accurate. I guess I was sort of lumping money and influence together because they're not easily separable. I mean, I guess you can't really pay your rent with Twitter clout, but Twitter clout does help you get that money.
Quite, yeah. So Aaron the Pedantic asks the Inappropriate Characters crew our thoughts on Troika. Well, Troika, almost everybody involved in it has ties to like the far left. But as a game, looking at it as a game, it is basically a ripoff of Advanced Fighting Fantasy, like the Fighting Fantasy RPG, Dungeoneer, I think it was called originally, which they've taken, copied, and then put in, some zany kind of art added to it, right? There's zero creativity involved. It's a clone of Advanced Fighting Fantasy. So there's nothing creative about it. And if you like Advanced Fighting Fantasy, you don't have to buy Troika, because there's Arion Games, ARION Games, that publishes both the reprints of the original Fighting Fantasy RPG, but also their second edition Fighting Fantasy, which has modifications and innovations that are pretty good. They also publish Maelstrom and Maelstrom Rome, and like all the kind of they have, and they're licensed to publish these, right? So they're the official licensed publisher that they got from, I guess, Penguin Books or whoever it was that used to do Fighting Fantasy, from Steve Jackson and Ian Livingston, to make these books, and so you could get them there.
I mean, I think Troika has a little more creativity than you're giving them credit for, but I think where it falls down is mechanically, and then also people in the OSR know that, like, under the hood, there are certain protocols that work in the background that make the game more, I don't know, holistic or, bigger than some of its parts. Whereas if you're just coming at games and you're like, oh, this is cool, that's cool, some artwork and some funny names, you're not going to have anything like reaction rolls or morale or, anything like that. You're just going to come up with some crazy random tables and some creativity and some artwork and like the inner or deeper glue that meshes it all together and makes it like a coherent system that's good for more than just a one-shot isn't going to be there. And that's, as I said in the chat, Prince of Nothing just like a couple days ago, just did a big, long, exhaustive review of Troika, which is a really good read. And, his assessment was, it's not that great for the reasons I mentioned. But it is fairly creative. It's kind of like a lesser version of Mork Borg, but without the death metal. If that makes sense.
Job, any thoughts?
I never picked up Troika just because every time I encountered anyone talking about Troika online, they were kind of jerks. I'm not talking about the people that wrote it necessarily. I don't even know the hell wrote it, but so I was just like, well, I already have advanced Fighting Fantasy books.
Taylor, any thoughts on Troika that you want to share?
I've played a one shot of Troika. I mean, it's leaving aside my personal issues with all of the people involved in making Troika. I guess I shouldn't say all the people. I don't have an exhaustive list. But many of the people. Leaving those aside, it's fine, I guess. I liked the inventory mechanics enough to have it be one of the 4 things that I copied for an inventory mechanics product that I put out, which really pissed them off. It's not like I ripped them off or anything. I just sort of did it doesn't matter, but it's maybe 25% their influence. Anyways, it's a fine system, I guess. I think that if a system is going to be that minimalist, it shouldn't be 60 pages long. I just generally got the feeling that it could have been much shorter, and if it was shorter, it would have been more usable at the table.
So a related kind of question to get the crowd to know a bit more about kind of your OSR involvement. So what would you say is your favorite or favorites OSR games?
This is a hard question for me to answer as a designer, because I end up thinking favorite, and I think, well, does that mean game that I've had the most fun with? Does that mean game that I think is perfect. Because if I thought there was a perfect game, I'd just stop designing. Do I just give the honest answer of LiveStream, which is very, very, very conceited to answer?
No, that's totally acceptable, because I mean, when people ask me what's the best OSR game, I say, well, obviously, what I consider the best OSR game is Lion and Dragon, because that's the game I made to modify D&D exactly the way I like it, right? So, but that's normal. But okay, I'm not counting your own game. What games do you like?
Gosh. Does Pendragon count as OSR?
Yeah.
No, not technically. It's an old school game, but
it's what you mean by OSR.
Yeah, it's old school, but it's not technically OSR because it's not D&D based. But Pendragon is a great game. Yeah.
Sure. Knave, definitely. Knave is great. It just gets you on the table playing. Obviously, I like BX. I think it deserves an honorable mention here. I don't know if it's my favorite. And I think that there's a lot of issues with Dungeon World. And I'm sure that there are people who will listen to this who won't like the guy's politics, and I'm not. I don't even want to think about those. Yeah, but I would say that I've had a lot of fun with it. I don't know if that's down to the system or just down to the fact that the system was easy enough to use that me and my friends were able to play it drunk.
Okay. Yeah.
So I guess that's my list.
Is there any game, any OSR game that you haven't played yet, but that you think would probably be one that you'd want to play?
I keep hearing very good things about Worlds Without Number and Forbidden Lands.
Yeah, for sure. Those I haven't played Worlds Without Number yet either, but Stars Without Number, which is of course the first of Kevin Crawford's games, is pretty seminal as far as a science fiction OSR game.
That's the one I meant. I meant Stars Without Number. I really, at some point, I really want to play a campaign where we're all just spacefaring merchants, and it's just like almost like I guess I'd call it like working class science fiction, like Firefly or was this?
So you'd like Classic Traveler, probably.
Yes, I would like to play Classic Traveler at some point. I keep trying to when I go to conventions, and it just doesn't come up.
Isn't there an RPG called Working Class Science Fiction or something?
Not that I know of, but
maybe.
I've never heard it.
It's either I thought it was either the name of something or like a specific genre of science fiction role playing games. But anyway, continue.
I don't know. I just in the comments here, just a sec. In the comments here, Cynocephalus, because otherwise this comment's going to get away from me. Cynocephalus says, for me, it sounds like Taylor falls more on the old school adjacent style, taking old D&D concepts but changing more and putting in more modern ideas. Would you agree with that analysis, Taylor?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's definitely where I fall in.
Which means that of the three of us in Inappropriate Characters, you're probably closest in design philosophy to Venger, who often makes products that look a bit like OSR without actually being OSR.
Well, they're old school traditional, games or content, but there's not, that's not really a niche or a market or a tag or a brand or anything. So all there is the OSR. So that's why we use.
That's why you still
OSR
try to call it OSR.
It needs almost the same thing, but not quite. And it's really the only thing that still fits, that's recognizable. So,
well, Venger, I think you've fallen, you've stumbled onto something in your last products in Chalt, which is a very good method for people who do like that kind of like the far edge of, you know, OSR design school, which is that unlike your earlier games like Alpha Blue, where the system is very clearly not really OSR at all, in Chalt you have this kind of bare bones set of mechanics that could be completely compatible with D&D 5th edition or D&D old school. It's like just the very most basic skeletal frame of D&D, and then you can add on other stuff to that, which makes it weird and wild, right, and less normal. But it means that the person who buys your product could run it with a traditional OSR game, or they could run it with, you know, something much more unusual. And I think maybe like from a business perspective, if you want to make games that push the kind of the envelope of what OSR design really is, that's the secret for doing that and not losing customers, because some customers will say, well, this isn't really OSR. You know?
Yeah, because I'm not a mechanics wonk. That, you know, that's not my specialty or my forte. You know, the adventures of the campaign setting and random tables and things like that. You know, that's my bread and butter. So I want to leave the mechanics kind of, like you said, bare bones and as interpretive as possible, because you know, everybody has their own style, and there's like literally 1,000 OSR or retro clones out there. So yeah, I mean, if you want a writing style for OSR or OSR adjacent, yeah, I mean, you should copy what I do. And I copied what other people did before me, and I've just been doing that. And it's worked for me, and it'll probably work for whoever is listening that wants to, you know, write their own adventure or their own whatever.
It's
sorry, go ahead.
It's just remarkable because that's also exactly what I've done. I basically have a stricture for myself that for almost any product I write, I want it to be compatible with every edition of D&D. And if I have that restriction for myself, it'll also be compatible with a huge number of other games, exactly like Venture has said. Because the really great thing about the OSR, in my opinion, is compatibility. Because you have,
absolutely.
If I write a game that's, I don't know, if I think it's mechanically perfect, but it's only really compatible with other stuff I might write, it's a little bit useless for people. But if I write a game that is compatible with every D&D thing that has been made in the past 50 years, it's an amazing product right out the gate.
Malachi's Mercurial Musings has a suggestion, which is also an example of what we're just talking about with compatibility. A suggestion that I think Benjer and I will certainly be in agreement with. He says, speaking of Chalt, I want to run it using Star Adventurer. Excellent idea, Malachi. But yeah, absolutely. It's the compatibility is the core of OSR design. So Job, Benjer, either of you guys have any questions for our guest tonight?
You got anything, Job?
Are we getting your audio, Job?
I don't see his lips moving, so I don't even know if he can hear us.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay, you got him.
I just out of curiosity, I guess it just jumped in my head. I was wondering what Taylor thought of like Dave Chappelle and some of his specials. If they've watched that.
Vendor question. Oh my God. All right.
Well, I mean, it's that whole like the pronoun stuff has come up, at least on Twitter, and I don't know. It's weird and difficult for some of us that aren't from that background to like relate to that. But there are certain like cultural icons or fixtures that maybe if I know how a person relates to that, like Dave Chappelle, then I can sort of understand where they're coming from or see it from their perspective. I don't, because it's
honestly, I never bothered to watch the whole special. I saw that all the controversy. I saw some quotations from it, which, I mean, I'm sure anyone who, if I vaguely recalled them, could say you took that out of context. I'd be like, yeah, it was meant to be out of context. So I don't know. I don't love his whole reaction to everything, mostly because he's sort of acted like the trans community. I don't know if I'd consider myself trans. I'm not cis, but I'm not sure if that makes me trans either. I don't know.
So there are some question marks there that it's okay to leave them as question marks, and they don't have to be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's
okay.
There's a push in like a lot of modern queer culture to identify yourself down to the tiniest little minutia of everything that you are, and to then just like put that out into the world and tell everyone about everything about you. I don't really want to taxonomize myself for public consumption. I, to a certain degree, I'm not even sure that I'm comfortable with the amount that I am taxonomized right now. Like
if I may, Taylor, I noticed the first times that you interacted with me, most of the time, first of all, I had to end up asking you if you had a pronoun preference. You never told it to me, but before that, most of the times when you were identifying sort of yourself, you were using the word queer, right? You were identifying as queer, right?
Yeah. I love that because it's so vague.
You like that term.
Yeah, it's vague. It's
right.
There are some people who say queer is a slur, and I guess it's been used as a slur at them, which I don't know. I like it because it's vague. I don't have to taxonomize myself. I can say queer, and then it's clear like what side of whatever I'm on, kind of, and then
it doesn't put you in a box.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Yeah. But as for Dave Chappelle, just to answer the original question, I don't really know. The biggest opinion I have that is it seems like in a lot of his response, he's wanted to like act like the trans community is a very coherent thing that he can negotiate with, and it's not any more than there's like a, I don't know. There's not like there's a high queen of transness, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
That's my big opinion.
All right. Job, do you have any questions for Taylor?
Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to pick up any of Taylor's stuff before the show.
That's fine.
I'm not sure what to ask. I did want to kind of ask you, could you talk about your latest product?
Good idea.
Yes.
So you want a revolution or something like that? That looked interesting to me.
Yeah. Can we actually put I think Pundit has a copy of So You Want a Revolution. Can we put like screens of that up on the thing, just because it's the art is really good. I got an actual artist do the art this time.
Oh yeah, who did it? The Basic Expert on Twitter or something?
Yeah, the Basic Expert.
I follow that dude.
Yeah. But
our boomer technology level, it can't really do that.
That's fine. That's fine.
Well, it's on. I can see it on drive-through. I just did a search here, but and I'm guessing it's also on itch. Oh yeah,
yes.
Here it is. Yeah. So if Job, I don't know if you want to do the legwork, but if you go on itch, if you do a Google search for so you want a revolution and Taylor Lane, you write that all in the Google, it'll get you to the itch page, and there you can see the link.
There's at least a screen there, so you don't have to pay $5 for my stuff. So there's art. Anyways, So You Want a Revolution is really just me trying to make a tool to deal with a very common problem I see in RPGs, where someone says, I want to do a political game where we're either all revolutionaries or we're fighting a revolution, like fighting against a revolution. And then no one really knows how to adjudicate that, because it's a very weird position for a lot of especially modern gamers to be in, because it's not really, a revolution is not really an individually scaled thing. And it's not entirely clear that the main characters will have a pivotal role to play in it, because revolutions are mass movements. So I made a tool to run a revolution, and a lot of what it turns on is basically the theory that the system as a whole has two stats of fear and rage. And fear is how scared the populace is of the government, and rage is how angry they are. And the more that rage exceeds fear, the more likely they are to spontaneously rise up. And the PCs, they can increase rage by exposing whatever crimes the government has done, and they can decrease fear by showing the government can be beaten. And there's also a system for generating factions in the whole thing, where as you roll on there to see if they rise up, if they do rise up, it generates a faction if there's not already a faction on the map, on the sort of map of the revolution there. But at the same time, the factions are expected to fight each other, and they're not really ideologically labeled. I'm very proud of the fact that it's a tool for simulating revolutions that doesn't require you to agree with whatever politics I have, or even, I think, know what those are. I think the strongest political message I have in the entire product is revolutions are unpredictable, and they can get out of your control.
That's a good theme.
Yeah.
And I see now the cover image is, or rather the itch image is on the screen now for people to see it.
Yeah.
In the chat, Cynocephalus said, also, I bought your bundle on the recent sale, Taylor. Hope you collected a good bunch, because you did last month you did a bundle of all of your previous products so far, and that sold pretty well from what I understand, especially after Potato John's video.
That sold really well. I started at the beginning of January, like near the beginning. So I had no idea I would become any sort of controversial figure when I started it. But I in the end, I had a goal of $250 for the whole thing, and itch lets you set a goal for your fundraising, and I set the minimum price at $6. People were allowed to tip me more, because that's how itch works. And I didn't really think I'd make the goal. I thought it was just like I was just like, okay, fine, fuck it. I this is my back catalog. It's not doing anything anyways. I might as well make it half off and see who bites. And with everything that happened, I raised $414, which is 165% of my original goal.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Nice.
Lord Mateus on the chat says, I just picked up the Revolution stuff. Not bad. He says also, I think the tool is very neutral in terms of politics. It's a pure game system, which makes it good. I think there's some work that could be added to it, but I very much like it.
Yeah.
So there you go. You're getting good reviews here.
Yeah. Lord Mateus. I think. I mean, I don't want to speak for them, but my impression has generally been that they like my stuff. I've talked to them a few times.
So my question for you is, now you've been interacting with the regular OSR for a while. You had a fairly loud introduction thanks to the Lollipop live stream and then Potato John's video, and you've interacted with a lot of people. I know that you're on the Inglorious OSR MeWe group, which is a great group for discussing OSR, but also gets into quite a bit of political stuff. And I wanted to ask, like, in general, I'm sure you've run into some people who maybe have been a little bit distrusting and or hostile, and I'm sure you've run into some people who have been really friendly. And overall, how would you assess your experience of the regular OSR as a hobby fandom, in terms of how what has the ratio been as far as people who've been assholes to you versus people who've been basically friendly?
I would say that it's somewhere between 70 to 90% friendly, which is good enough for me. There has been a non-zero amount of I guess the term I'd use is prejudice, maybe. But like, even the prejudiced people who are like, I don't like that you use they them pronouns, I think that your queerness I don't think it's valid, etc. Even they will sometimes end up buying my stuff. And even when they don't buy my stuff, they don't make hour-long videos lying about me. Like, if someone wants to hate me for being queer, you know what? That sucks, and I wish they wouldn't do it. And I'd like to have a talk with them and convince them that I'm not a threat to them and their individual human prospering. But at least someone hating me for being queer is based in fact and reality, and isn't some sort of elaborate set of lies about me, because I am queer. If someone wants to hate me for being queer, at least that's true. I don't know. Does that make sense? Like, I'd rather be hated for something.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Real.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always a lot more receptive to people who attack me in the RPG hobby for things I've actually said, or for being an asshole, which I sometimes am, than for people who just make up shit whole hog and use that to launch these slanderous attacks, for sure. And that's a very good point. No one in the regular OSR has done a 1-hour video about how awful you are or something like that.
I don't want to say it's I don't want to say it's impossible for them to someday do that, but like, we can have that conversation when someone does.
Yeah. Yeah, I you know, as the admin of the Inglorious OSR group on MeWe, which is, you know, it's a free speech group. People can say what they want. What I noticed in the chats where there were people interacting with you is that there were some people that were maybe directly hostile, not a lot, and then there were some people that were like very very negative or distrusting in broad general terms about, you know, the LGBT movement or something like that, and we're kind of trying to lay that on your shoulders, but would at the same time not, you know, they weren't attacking you as an individual. They were attacking what they saw as a social movement that they didn't like, you know, which is an interesting kind of phenomenon, you know.
Yeah,
That's unfair to you, right? To put that on your shoulders, especially because you're clearly not coming in and you know, talking about how, the hobby has to change to suit me or something like that, you know. But it's also very interesting because it gives the impression that you know, like if there were more people who are game designers who are, you know, not straight white males that start doing OSR games, and that you know, they're there to make product and stuff like that, that'll probably have a bigger effect in changing minds, you know, or at least opening them a bit, than anything that the woke crowd do, you know.
Yeah, I think that there's a number of people in that Inglorious OSR crowd, and maybe just more generally out in the world, who think that people like me are a threat to their way of life and their general human flourishing and their general ability to, if they want, I don't know. I don't know what they want, but I don't want to be a threat to whatever it is that's just them living their lives. And
as an individual, I don't think, and maybe I can try to clear this up from my perspective. As an individual, I don't think anybody would see you or anybody like you as a threat. But the way the left and the LGBTQ goes, it seems that it's always based on a collectivism, and so there's never just one, or there's never just the individual. It's always the group, the collective, the committee. You know, all those people over there, you know, protesting or doing the pride parade, and so it's hard to differentiate. When you see an individual, it's almost like, well, there's got to be like 100 people right behind them that I can't see right now, but they're there and they're like waiting for me to say the wrong thing or, you know, use the wrong pronoun. And then, who knows, like 10 minutes later, I might be canceled. And that kind of fear, I think creates a lot of, well, fear and possibly hostility or animosity. But if they just see you as an individual, I don't think there'd be any problem, because you're not threatening. Just because someone happens to be gay or happens to be whatever, in itself, unless they have like an actual phobia, that's nothing to be afraid of, and that's nothing to be worried about. But it's the collectivism that goes along with the movement that I think worries people and makes them see monsters under the bed, where in your case there aren't any. So there's really nothing to fear.
So there's a couple things to tackle here. First off, generally speaking, the purpose of any form of etiquette is to let people who don't know each other that well communicate that they respect each other. And a lot of the using the proper words thing that some people do find trips them up, that's etiquette. That's them running up against a form of etiquette that they didn't write and aren't familiar with. And obviously that could be scary. I think that think that it's been counterproductive to focus on words over intentions, because I've seen some people with very bad intentions use the right words, and I've seen some people with the best of intentions towards me use words that aren't quite correct. And I would really rather take the intentions than the words, because the words, they're words. They're not gonna. No one has died from words.
Right.
Intentions, people, that can lead to some serious stuff. But words is the. You get what I'm saying,
Right? Because intentions usually lead to actions, whereas words are just basically symbols to try to communicate ideas.
Yeah.
I totally get what you're saying.
So I would say that I don't know about what you're necessarily thinking of, but the reaction that I'm seeing a lot of people, I should say there's some reactions in the general crowd, not going to name names because it's just a can of worms, but that I think are just unjustified. But I think a certain portion of people are reacting to about 5% of queer people who are hardcore leftists who care more about leftism than they do about queerness. And 5% of people in general are hardcore leftists, at least in America. So that's I think that to a certain extent, the image of queerness has been hijacked by certain political groups who don't really care about queerness, but do care about using other people's marginalized status as a hammer. And I don't like that, because I don't think it's been good for queer people in general.
Or like a net, like a big net to sort of like the Obama coalition, to sort of like scoop all the marginalized people together to create to cobble together one giant, albeit rickety, voting bloc. To always win elections. Online it just seems like it seems like a lot more. Probably in reality in like America, offline like 5%, but online it just seems like a majority, if not like half or majority of anybody that identifies a certain way. It's like, okay, well, I already know what they're going to say and what they're thinking and how they operate, because I've seen 1,000 other people like them, and that's unfortunate, because we should be taking people as individuals. But
look, that's the key, right?
And because we see it constantly over and over and over and over, it's drilled into us like a behavioral pattern that, like, that person, okay, we're stereotyping. I already know what that person's like. I don't need to even get to know them, because...
So what you're saying is true, and I think that the tragedy of it is that it's a symmetrical situation. They're also stereotyping you.
Right.
And
exactly, yeah.
It's a situation where two sides are screaming at each other, and each side is screaming because they see the other side screaming. And if you want to
everyone in the OSR is a racist homophobe, right? That's their narrative, yeah.
If you want to stop the screaming, and if you want to dissolve that coalition you don't like, just don't scream back. I mean, that entire coalition you don't like, that exists because they're afraid of you. And if you just don't give them a reason to be afraid, I'm not going to promise there'll be anyone will really step outside themselves and realize what you're saying, but there's a chance.
Yeah, well, significantly, I think, is a great example of that, because he's very reasonable, and I don't know if he's ever screamed at anybody in his entire life.
Who?
I think Venger touches on something when he talks about like that when you see the kind of this activist movement, if you're, somebody from the regular OSR, let's say, you end up assuming that everybody who is LGBT is behind that movement, right? But that's sort of like saying, well, I'm a Latino, right? So if if you were to assume that because I'm a Latino, I must be, a socialist who wants open borders and illegal immigration, and there are millions of Latinos who are anti-socialist and who do not want illegal immigration, So the key becomes, as soon as you end up where your only interaction isn't with these groups, but rather with specific individuals, then you start to realize that, when it comes to people as individuals, they aren't necessarily represented by these narratives about the groups as a whole, So you've got, the best way to actually get rid of these notions is by interacting with people as individuals,
Yeah, I would very much agree with that. I mean, that's really the key to a lot of this just generalized everyone. I guess omnidirectional screaming is what I would say, because like it might not be apparent, but like even it's easy for people to mentally lump together people they don't like, but everyone has factions and sub factions, and it's just fractally nested. It's funny. I when you mentioned anti-socialist Latinos, I just thought about how every couple of years I see headlines that are very concerned about how suddenly Latinos in Florida are voting Republican. And I just think to myself, did you forget that Cubans and Mexicans are different groups?
Yeah, but it's changing now too, because Venger mentioned the kind of Obama coalition that happened, where the specific strategy of the Democratic Party during Obama's campaign was to bring together this wide rainbow coalition of people of everybody who was not straight and white, and that kind of did work at the time, in part because the other side of that tactic was to paint the Republicans as a party that was only for straight white people. And to be fair, there were a lot of Republicans in 2008 that were on board with that idea, so that was not helpful. But now you've seen, in the last couple of years, in fact, from 2016 onwards, the non-white vote in general, not just Cubans, but Latinos in general, in Virginia, the majority of Latinos voted Republican in this last gubernatorial race, and those aren't Cubans, So what happened, I think, is that a whole bunch of people that were part of that diversity coalition, so to say, started to realize that, actually this is a tiny group of people that are claiming to speak for all of us. And some of their ideas are kind of abhorrent to some of us. And you know what? Maybe we should start looking at what the other party has to say, what the other side has to say. And that changed. And also, the Trump movement also changed Republicanism to being much more focused on this kind of colorblind nationalism, that it, we being a party where it wants anybody who kind of supports the Republican ideology, and not just and not automatically giving away the non-white vote to the left, because that's what they were doing for a very long time. They were just assuming, well, we can't win those people, they're as though Latinos are genetically leftist or something like that, or black people or LGBT people,
I mean, you can't really ignore and all that Obama, at least in 2008, was incredibly charismatic as like him or dislike him. He was really good at giving speeches and motivating a crowd.
undoubtedly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's he was good enough that I don't think that there is going to be an equally charismatic Democratic presidential contender within the next 10 years. I don't think there's been one since him. Bernie sort of came close, but he also failed to actually be the presidential candidate twice. I guess my broader point here is that Obama had the charisma needed to wield together a vast coalition like that. But I don't know. He didn't really. There were a lot of after his presidential terms. There was a lot of feeling that he had abandoned certain promises. I don't know.
Okay, we got a $10 super chat here from Emery Calumet that says, Giant Robot Psychic Tragedy available on Lulu now as an edible book. Read it, play it, eat it with our new spicy dice. Joke ad. All right. Thank you for that, Emery. That's great. We've got a few other comments from the chat here. Jeffrey Garrison says...
I should make my exit now because I got to go.
Okay. Well, do you want to pitch anything just before you go, Venger?
Sure. Just that the long-awaited PDF for Book 3, Chult, Chartreuse Shadows, is finally out on Drive-Thru RPG. It's $20 if you want to download it now. If you're not part of the Kickstarter, then that's the way to get it. I should have the hardcover in my hands this summer. Yeah, it's a whopping 360 pages. Part of that is because it includes the previous material that's out on the PDF, which was Saving Chult and Chult After Dark. So if you don't already have those, it's a great deal. If you do have those, all you have to do is message me, email me, or whatever. It PayPal me like $10, so half price. And then I'll then I'll send you the PDF myself, and so you're not paying twice for the same material. I didn't have to do it that way, but I wanted the PDF to be a reflection of the eventual hardcover. So that's why I cobbled everything together, because I wanted everything in the hardcover that wasn't already in hardcover. As everybody should already know, it's Eldritch, Gonzo, science fantasy, post-apocalypse. I think it's awesome. Hopefully you guys do too. That's the cover. Also, VengerCon this July in Madison, Wisconsin. Tickets are still available. So if you want an old school, traditional OSR type convention that's just about gaming and really nothing else, yeah, you should come. That's
Excellent.
It. Thanks, guys.
All right. See you soon, Venger.
Nice to meet you, Taylor.
Venger.
Nice to meet you too.
Remember, if you want Venger to stay up later, then support us on our our Patreon. The link is in the description. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, if you're watching this.
We are at the hour mark, so we probably should do the rest of the shills now and then dive into the topic.
Okay, go for it. Go for it, Job. Who's first?
You're up.
I'm up. Okay. Well, I guess the product that I'm promoting right now is the Old School Companion 2, Medieval Authentic Adventures. I did a video on my YouTube channel explaining, going through all 26 of the adventures that are there. It's a 320-page book. It's now, in part, I think, thanks to Potato John Battle, his video. It's now hit silver bestseller a bit quicker than I thought it would. And it's available from Drive-Thru on PDF for $14.95, or you can get the PDF and the soft cover, which is good because it's a really nice book, for $34.95. So check that out. There's 26 adventures in there that can be used with any OSR system. Obviously, if you're a Lion and Dragon fan, it'll be especially useful. and it's doing really well, and it's a lot better than any adventure books that Wizards of the Coast puts out. That's just my opinion, of course, but I think some of the people who bought it have probably agreed with that. That's it for me for now.
Great. Okay. So, what am I showing? The Book of Antitheses. I gotta take these headphones off. Book of Antitheses is in pre-order now at the U.S. Web store. So for Lamentation, so us.lotfp.com. Is it in euros? I think it's 45 euros. Anyway, basically it's stuck in customs right now, so we don't know the exact date it's going to land at the. But if you order now, it will be shipped immediately as it clears customs. Of my bloodyhammergames.com. Other materials that I put together, like the Bone Divination for Game Master kits that work hand in hand with. Are you up, Taylor? Oh, wait. Sorry, one more thing. Also, if you are curious about the Book of Antitheses, what do you call it? The Neckbeardia Reborn YouTube channel did a whole hour and 15-minute long review of it. Show a lot of the art and read a lot of passages out of it. So if you're on the fence, go check out that. And those guys are hilarious. It's really funny. Okay, so sorry, you're up, Taylor.
I guess if I need to plug something, and I've already mentioned So You Want a Revolution, go play, go at least read through LiveStream 2E. I think it's what, $5 on Drive-Thru RPG, and pay what you want on itch.
All right.
Okay. And we have all of Taylor's links in the show notes. So just find them there.
There we go. All right. Some comments from the live chat here, as I was about to say before Benjer had to leave. Jeffrey Garrison says, Taylor Lane is cool, makes good creative materials, don't care about gender or sexual preference, don't want to care. Take off, nuke the political question from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Yeah.
Emery Calamay says Taylor was designated as a bigot, and not because of any expression of bigotry from Taylor. It's not a criticism designed to help Taylor improve. It was a whip brought down on someone non-compliant. Lord Mateus says Taylor and the OSR has done more for conservative LGBTQ plus relations than anything the mainstream media or liberal Twitter bullshit has ever done. Bravo.
Thank you. That warms my heart.
Jeffrey Garrison asks, is John Potato watching the show? Almost certainly. We can pretty much bet, Jeffrey Garrison says, John Potato, sound off like you just got delivered a pair from Amazon if you're watching.
If John Battle is watching, I would like to say, Mr. Battle, please make another video about me. I'd like to go to some fancy dinners.
Excellent.
If John is listening, my name is Grim Jim.
That's very good. Malachi's Mercurial Musing says, I was talking to someone recently and the whole Latinx thing came up, and they said how Latin people they've talked to hate it. Yeah, every single Latino hates that term. And yet the left insists on continuing to use it, which is, an example of their imperialism, basically.
So I think what bothers me most about Latinx is that it's unpronounceable, if
Yeah.
you're not a native English speaker, but also like if you want a gender neutral suffix in Spanish, you can just resurrect elements from classical Latin.
Yeah,
Like
you could. But
you could say Latine or Latini or Latine. There are other options.
yeah, but the fact is that, Spanish as a language is a gendered language. Everything has a gender. A table has a gender, a cat has a gender, a glass has a gender, everything, right? So it's and that's not actually some kind of tool of oppression. That's just the nature of the language.
Sure.
So Timothy DeBurr says, for the RPG Pundit, what would astral travel look like practically in a campaign at the Invisible College? I think you've said that entire missions could be done on the astral plane. Well, that's a tricky question to answer in brief, but basically, characters who go into the astral plane, who engage in astral travel, are going into another dimension of reality, so to say. It depends on where you're going in the astral plane, but it's not that different from, say, if you're running a cyberpunk game or something and people go into like the net, so it's a hyper reality, right? And a hyper reality state. And there's essentially limitless places that you can explore because the astral plane encompasses everything that is abstract and symbolic, so you can find worlds there, It would be like, Jeffrey Garrison says it would be like a lucid dream. Yeah, it would also be very similar to a lucid dream. Exactly. Anyway, so let us know if you have any other questions for any of us, but especially for Taylor. Briefly, I wanted to bring up the other topic of the night, which is the Critical Role, the people that do a reality TV show of live improv that is about a group of people supposedly playing D&D, have just begun, I guess, their third major campaign of their product line, and the woke crowd are not happy with it. And there was an article on Kotaku, of all places, that explained why, and it's very funny because so they've created this setting that is, because I'm guessing that somebody at some point said, well, all of your settings are based on like European tropes, right? So then they went and they're making a new setting that is based on Middle Eastern culture. Now, Kotaku doesn't say that. They say it draws inspiration from Swana, Southwest Asian / North African, which is a term, I guess, the new term that the wokeists have invented instead of saying Middle East. So, which is just a ridiculous term, but whatever. And they point out that, Critical Role hired sensitivity consultants to create a fantasy continent free of appropriation. So, they paid the Danegeld, they paid the due tithes to the wokeists, so that, it would be known that their product was woke. And yet, apparently that's no longer good enough, because now they're saying that Critical Role is nevertheless making a financial killing off the aesthetics of cultures not represented by the cast makeup of the show, which is made up entirely of white people, save for guest members. And so now they're basically being attacked by the wokeists, in spite of having done everything the wokeists said they needed to do to make this setting, because by definition, you can't have now apparently white D&D live streamers running a game set in a setting that isn't based on European culture. Of course, if they do only run settings based on European culture, they're also bigots. So it's set up so that they can't possibly win. And normally, this is the sort of thing that could, piss you off, right? But given that Critical Role have, made a profession out of going out of their way to act woke, including making condemnations of people in the D&D hobby that refuse to play the wokest game, they're kind of getting what they fucking deserve, right? And I'm just looking at this, eating popcorn and being very amused that the revolution is devouring their own. I don't know if I read your supplement, Taylor, because you sent it to me, but I don't remember now if you have a mechanic for when the revolution starts eating its own, which is something that happens very often with revolutions. But this is an example of how it's going on right now.
So the closest thing I have to that, because it has to be setting neutral, which is why some people say that it's a little bit sparse. So when a faction's range, like when a faction's amount of so there's a D100 table that you populate as you play out the revolution, and when the number of entries that a faction occupies on that D100 table exceeds the fear of the state, that faction becomes the new state. But that doesn't actually end the revolution. No one else has to throw down their arms and stop fighting the newly empowered faction.
Wow.
So you can kind of just go round and round forever. And the players, I guess, can help their favorite faction mop up all the other factions. But at the end of the day, like, either this is going to continue forever, which is obviously a terrible outcome, or one faction is going to kill off all the other ones, and there very much are faction versus faction combat rules for mass combats. So yes, I would say that I do anticipate that the revolution will turn on itself.
Excellent.
Yeah, because that's yeah.
Job, do you have any opinion on the Critical Role thing, aside from how funny it is?
Yeah, actually, I took... God, these headphones. All right, I'm not going to hear you for a second. The people out there, I have an audio problem where I hear myself talk with a half-second delay. It's driving me nuts. Okay, so... yeah, I'll just read this one paragraph, which I think was, like, the best of the entire thing. So... Since the intro sequence was released, the campaign has continued and now has over 12 episodes. It's thus far existed in a strange half-space between Swana-inspired set dressing and the standard familiar high fantasy naming conventions of the show's previous campaigns. There haven't been any outright offensive descriptions or actions taken, but the way the cast members roleplay through the world has felt exactly the same as their previous campaigns. Nothing signifies Marquette as a unique world, other than the aesthetic of it. In the end, despite their dedication to creating an appropriation-free world, they fail to present us with anything of substance. All their research and sensitivity efforts pay off in a world that is little more than window dressing. So, I mean, first off, they're saying that they're negating their entire article. They're saying there's nothing offensive actually in this. And also, they're saying what we've been saying for years here, and that's, if you take out everything that could possibly be offensive about something or might possibly offend somebody, you're going to end up with this milquetoast, completely unengaging, just vanilla, watered down crap that is going to please nobody.
And again, if they'd made it into something where there was it was a genuine and authentic representation of kind of Middle Eastern cultural concepts, then they'd be accused of Orientalism, which they also are anyways in the article. So exactly. The article just basically says you have no way to win, right? We're going to hate Critical Role no matter what, because we've decided now that it's just too many white people to be allowed,
So that's also the paragraph I was going to bring up. I was actually pasting it into the chat to
Great minds.
Bring it up. I don't. Yeah. So I also think the paragraph after that is worth reading out. So I'm going to read that too before I make my general point. This isn't a problem unique to Critical Role, in my honest opinion. Predominantly white TTRPG games, both the systems and the individual campaigns, are frequently void of cultural specificity. By cultural specificity, I mean the unique traits of a culture that are present on a personal environmental level. In role-playing games with predominantly white players, even with the most intricately built worlds, there is still a lack of connection between the cultures they play in and the way they play their characters. The characters and people playing them are untouched by the world in which they exist, with most of their specificity coming from individual conflicts and unique backstory elements, rather than an overarching connected system of cultures. Even when inoffensively borrowing from European and Scandinavian cultures, these settings are built on the foundation of aesthetics rather than any specific cultural touchstones or unique characteristics of the cultures they borrow from. Okay, so obviously there's a few things going on here. First off, there's the complaint has morphed from this is racist to this doesn't have any cultural connection to anything, which is a very different complaint. I don't know. Job already said most of what there is to say on that, but it's a very weird morphing of the complaint. I also think it's weird that they're putting this on predominantly white role players, but they're not explaining what the role player's race might have to do with anything.
Yeah, and why is the borrowing from European cultures inoffensive, but from other ones aren't? You know,
I don't know. I'm going to extract the non-dumb part of this because I think we already know everything that I could say about the dumb part. So I think it actually is true that a lot of role-playing can oftentimes not be touched by the cultures that it's based upon, even when those are medieval European cultures that we are ostensibly somewhat familiar with. I think that the medieval mindset is actually intensely alien to any sort of modern mindset. I think that it's very weird. The Middle Ages are very weird, much, much weirder than we ever give them credit for. And I think that I fervently wish that like more setting designers for role-playing games would read history books. Because I see a lot of role-playing games that are based on other non-role-playing media. That's bad. You should go back to the source. That non-role-playing media was at some point based upon myth and history and other things. And if you want to recapture the magic you felt when you watched that movie or read that book or whatever, it's not good enough to just copy out the book and translate it over. You need to figure out what their source material was. You need to go to the source and open a history book and open a book of myths and figure out what all of this is ultimately grounded in.
Well, you know, if you want to look at a setting that is based on just, you know, shallow aesthetics and not any actual deep cultural elements, look at the adventure Daniel Kwan did for the Candlekeep book, right? He complained that, you know, Oriental Adventures was not, you know, culturally authentic, and then he went and made an adventure that is just basically based off of wuxia movies that anybody could have made and that has no real depth to it. On the other hand, if you want to find products that are games that are based on actual like authentic characteristics of the cultures, and that you know, where the culture becomes a central part of role playing the setting, I know a few of those. You know, there's Arrows of Indra, Lion and Dragon. You know, those ones are actual games that are where you are, by definition, you cannot escape the cultural aspect of them, and you have to play with them. You know, unless you just, you know, completely choose to ignore all of that element of the gameplay. But in the book, that's what they are. And, you know, like, ironically, these guys are saying what I've been saying on my videos all this time, right? That the vast majority of RPG settings are just in the old days, they were just kind of medieval movie-based Renaissance fun time land. And nowadays they're just 21st century Seattle, and here I am, I made Lion and Dragon as an authentic medieval RPG because D&D and every other fantasy game is not authentically medieval, So, and yet, of course, they're never going to cite Arrows of Indra or Lion and Dragon as an example of that done well, because if you do that, then they're going to claim, that you're racist somehow because, you're not supposed to do it. So it's just an endless catch-22 with these people. But what they're complaining about is what I fix in my games, right? In any of my games, the setting is a central part of how you have to role play in the game. It's not just window dressing. Some comments from the live chat here. Malachi's Mercurial Musing says, the author of the article keeps bringing up the money Critical Role makes and how they shouldn't be making it. Yeah, that's obviously, as we pointed out earlier in the video, in the live stream, money is certainly one of the meta issues that they're using wokeness as a weapon to try to manipulate.
Right. This is the thing I wanted to bring up before. We shouldn't assume that the entire editorial and writing team behind this article from Kotaku really believes the things they're saying. Maybe the author does, but the author doesn't decide to platform the thing. The editorial staff does, and the editorial staff will platform whatever gets them the most advertising clicks. So we should keep that in mind when we read these opinion pieces. It's bad on purpose to make you click.
Fair enough. Windknot says, just picked up So You Want a Revolution. Looks good. Will find good use of it in my campaign. Thanks, Taylor.
Woo!
We got a question too from Lord Mattias that scrolled by and noted down. It said, hey Taylor, given that you've published a bunch of quick things, smaller publications, are you planning on working on anything bigger, more substantive?
Yeah, I've actually got two fairly big projects that I'm working on. One of those is with a creative partner that I think he would prefer that I keep it under wraps until maybe later this month. But I will say that it's something based in a weird fantasy road trip. And the other thing that I've been working on for a while now that I can talk about is something that I call Beneath an Endless Sky, which I should really just find the time to finish up. The PCs are the leaders of the various tribes of a tribal confederation of steppe nomads. And most of the game is just the slice of life of being sheep herders and solving the various problems that come up when you're the main political movers and shakers of a vast group of nomads. And that's probably going to weigh in at around 60 pages when I'm done with it. In accordance with my general philosophy, it is very well researched. I think it might be the best researched RPG piece of RPG media about steppe nomads ever, which is a boast I can make because that's an extremely low bar.
And it's going to be OSR, right?
Yeah. I've toyed it. So the system mostly has to do with the politics of, not politics in the sense of anything you might recognize in terms of any modern political party, but the politics of being the leader of a nomadic confederation. But it's very much possible to just bolt that onto any other system and use another system to run the actual day-to-day lives and individual interactions of the
of your PC, because your PC's character sheet, as far as Beneath an Endless Sky is concerned, is just a list of things they have and connections they have. It has nothing to say about like what you can individually do.
Yeah.
So if you want to have another system where you can be a wizard, that's fine. There's a productive void there.
Well, it sounds like, you know, my next big RPG project is Sword and Caravan, which is basically a Lion and Dragon type setting in the late 12th, early 13th century in the Silk Road. And so when your product comes out there, it sounds like it'll be an excellent companion product for that, you know, Silk Road adventuring, because of course I mentioned, you know, the nomadic tribes, right? The Uyghurs and the Kyrgyz and the Mongols. Obviously, the Mongols play a very big part in the late stage of that campaign if you play it through, obviously. And but I don't have any of those sorts of mechanics in the book. So somebody who picks up Sword and Caravan might end up wanting to pick up your product to use in a Sword and Caravan campaign.
I'm wondering if we can have some sort of tie-in between our products somehow, like some sort of mention in the back or something.
Yeah, maybe. I don't see why not. I'll have to talk to the publisher, but that could certainly work. I guess it depends when you release yours, though, because Sword and Caravan's going to come out sometime in the first half of this year. So we'll see. We'll have to see.
I can probably finish it by then.
Lord Mateus says here in terms of what we were just talking about in the Kotaku article, he says, Taylor Lane just gave a reason for why you should play Lion and Dragon. Exactly. T-shirted Historian says, I don't feel like a pundit stream is complete without you telling us what are you smoking? What are you smoking? I'm currently smoking Lorenzetti Horn with our Argento Natural. What else have we got here? Jeffrey Garrison says, Lord Mateos recently wrote a brilliant post about how setting is a character in an RPG. Okay, in defensive random encounters. That's interesting.
Can we get a link to that, or?
Nope, no link right now, but I'm guessing that's on Mateus's blog, maybe? I don't know. Carl Smith says, Sword and Caravan, nice. Yeah, that's my next big product. Dracopol says, Kotaku writers are currently smoking crack.
Gotta pin that one.
Yeah. Aaron the Pedantic says, I'm an Argento artificial man myself. It's called Argento Natural because it's just tobacco. It doesn't have any flavoring or chemical additives. All right. So let us know if you have any other questions. Otherwise, we should probably get starting to finish off here the live stream. While any other final questions are coming up, thank you, Taylor, for being on.
Sure, it's good to be here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we might invite you back in the future at some point when you release that book.
Sure. I release things pretty often, so that hopefully that's soon.
Good stuff. Aaron, your question was already asked earlier on in the stream.
Before you got here.
Yeah. So any final things, Job? Anything you want to add? I guess we can check out the next episode of Inappropriate Characters should be on the 13th of March.
All right.
There we go. So be sure to bookmark that, guys. 13th of March. We're going to be doing our next episode. I don't know if we'll have a guest star or not. We had guest stars the last couple of months, so I guess we'll see. But we'll definitely be talking about something interesting. And if you remember to like the video, share it, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And again, if you want to support our Inappropriate Characters ventures, then support us on Patreon. The link is going to be in the description here. Yeah, everybody, thanks for watching. And I guess that's it.
Thanks, everybody.
Unless there's anything else. No. All right. So we'll see you guys in 4 weeks.
Yeah, I'll see you guys then. Thanks again, Taylor. It's great meeting you.
Bye.
Just hold on the line for a second.
You too.
We close down the stream.
Sorry, I heard a hold on just before I disconnected.